up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Sister Buzz. Today's episode is extra special because we have on our first guest, and it just so happens to be someone super, super special to us.
I don't know if I'd say he's super special, but I mean, he's kind of special. He was born in Italy, hails from Australia, and has a terrible accent. May I introduce to you Mr. Dylan Loru?
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on the show today. Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel honored.
Oh, dear God.
I wasn't born in Italy, but I was born in Australia.
I already can't handle this. Well, then why do you call yourself Italian, Dylan?
Well, because majority of my culture is Italian. I just happen to be physically born in Australia, but everything I do and say is mostly from an Italian heritage. So, fun times.
See, it was easier whenever you just say you were born in Italy. People are like, cool, Italian, check. See?
Yeah, I know. But I mean,
but then everyone asked about his accent. So where's your accent
That
from?
would just make me a liar.
You are.
I told him I was born in Italy.
You're a bloody liar.
I'm a bluff.
How was your weekend, Dylan? Did y'all do anything fun for Easter?
Actually, we did. We went to, for Easter, well, I mean, where to begin? I was in Washington for a few days for a tennis tournament with St. John's. Unfortunately, I missed out on Good Friday. I wasn't in New York, but I did get back late Friday night, so I got to spend Saturday and Sunday with Maddie. On Sunday, we went to a lunch with our boss's family to a beautiful Italian restaurant and spent a good 3 to 4 hours there, which is nice because
to Italy.
I mean, nothing can compare to the beauty of Italy, but it is nice to be able to spend some time with, because Maddie and I are far away from family. It is nice sometimes to be able to be with other people who do care about us, and it does bring that family environment. So I'm very grateful for the invitation, and I believe we did have a good weekend. It was nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
How was yours?
It was laid back, honestly. We didn't have soccer this weekend, so I didn't have a game on Saturday. And then for Easter, we usually do our family and my in-laws, which are an hour away. But my in-laws were kind of dispersed because some of my in-laws decided to go to Texas and see some family. And then my other in-laws ended up going to celebrate my niece's birthday in Mississippi. So we really just stayed home all day and had the most laid back, chilled holiday ever, which was very different for us because we usually are in the car running from place to place trying to get everywhere. So it had its pros and cons. We didn't really get to see much family, so that was different, but it was nice to just be able to relax and not have to run around like crazy people.
I mean, sometimes it is nice to not have to always. I feel like during the holidays, I mean, especially in New York, I see the crazy in people. I mean, honestly, you go out on the road and like everyone's always stressed and hustling and everyone's on the move. Sometimes it's just, I mean, honestly, I just want to close myself in the house sometimes to just stay away from people because it just gets, I mean, I don't want to use the word overwhelming because I feel like we use that word too much, but it's sometimes just too much. It's nice to be able to have a holiday and just stay home and, not have to feel obliged to do anything. You know what I mean?
No, totally. Well, and I will say that on Good Friday, we had a big thing at Mom and Dad's house, and we had a lot of family come for that. And it was an all day long event. So I feel like I got my chaos and my family event out on Friday. So it was then nice to be able to relax on Sunday. But today we start back with soccer again because we kind of were off all last week. We didn't have practice or a game. So we'll be getting back to that, which, gets me back into the craziness of sports mom life. I always wonder, because I started my kids off in sports really young. I think Holden was 2 whenever we started him in soccer and swimming and all these other things. But I always wonder, did I start him off too young? And I was just wondering, do you, Dylan, as a person who has played sports their whole life, do you think starting them off this young is too early?
I mean, I think the earlier you start them, the quicker they can develop the fundamentals for any sport. I mean, so my situation in the way that I was raised in sports is a little bit different. My father was a good soccer player. My mom didn't really have much of a sports background, so they kind of just threw me. They kind of just threw me into sports without any expectations or without, any idea of what needed to be done.
He was born with only one kidney as well, so they were very restricted on what sports they wanted to put him in, because obviously, if you play soccer, it's a very physical sport. So that, something bad can happen and it could hurt his kidney or whatever.
That's true. So like when I started, obviously, my options were already pretty limited because of the one kidney, which, by the way, I was just born with. Nothing scary about it. I think it's pretty normal nowadays. But I was really just restricted to swimming, and I did a bit of swimming and I did tennis as well. So basically, I started playing tennis when I was 7 years old, and I think if I could go back, I would have wished I started earlier, because I did spend a few years really trying to learn those fundamentals. Now, when I say fundamentals, I mean like, when you're 3-4 years old, you're doing basic generic sport exercises, like learning how to run, learning how to keep your balance. Those are things that I feel like no matter what age you are, you should develop at a very young age. I mean, the younger, the better. So that then whenever he decides one day that he does want to specialize in a certain sport, he already has that foundation to begin with. So no, I don't think you started Holden too early, because I think it's good to have a strong basis, and he already looks like a good athlete to begin with. So it'll only develop from there.
I guess I just always wonder if I was asking too much of him at such a young age, because I see, kind of being on the other side of it now that I'm like, quote unquote, soccer coach. Don't take that one very seriously. But, now that I'm on the coaching side, I see how serious some of the parents take things. And I'm thinking to myself, they're 4. Like, you can't expect them to be professionals at 4. One of my kids was crying one day and I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, my dad. And I don't really know what he was saying about his dad, if his dad was even saying anything or if I just interpreted it wrong. But I'm thinking to myself, no child at 4 should be on a field crying because their parent is, reprimanding them for not playing well enough. Like, they're 4. They should be having fun to an extent. When you want to be serious and play professionally, well then yes, you should be serious, and maybe it's not quite so fun anymore. But at this age, I just feel like it should be fun, and people just take things way too seriously for little kids.
But I feel like kids a lot of the times get upset. Like, I remember vaguely there was a time where Holden, Brooklyn's oldest, didn't want to go to karate because karate was like an everyday thing after school. And I remember you being on the phone with Raymond, and Raymond was absolutely no, he cannot go home. He made a commitment to go to karate and he has to show up and he has to do that commitment. So maybe not so much as in the parents are reprimanding them because of their performance on the soccer field, but more along the lines of they're trying to teach them that you have to stay committed to what you decide that you want to do. Holden decided he wanted to do karate, and with that comes a schedule of what he needs to do every single day. And it's important that we continue to reinforce that.
Yeah, I mean, on top of I completely agree. I think I have spent a lot of time around other little athletes and I've seen their parents. I think there's 2 ways that you can look at it from. There's the physical attributes that you gain from sport, but also the personality traits that you can gain from it as well. So what I mean by that is I personally don't agree with parents basically projecting their needs into their child to be successful at the sport. To me, before a kid even decides that they want to take the sport competitively, they have to enjoy it. And it's very sad when you see, there were so many players that I knew that were incredible tennis players in under 12s, who by the time they got into under 14s, they had already quit because they were burnt out from the amount of hours they used to do in the sport. So step number one, they have to enjoy it. I mean, if the kid doesn't enjoy it, there's no future. And you can't, my parents always used to tell me, if you want to play tennis, you have to play always for yourself. Don't play for us. Don't play for your coach. Don't play for anyone but yourself. And, I love tennis, which is why it brought me and opened up so many doors for me. But it's really sad when you see like these kids being forced basically into programs, and you can tell that they don't enjoy it. But then the other side of that, so then like obviously you always have to understand the other side of it. Like I also don't want kids to just start joining a bunch of sports, and the moment they don't like it or something doesn't go their way, they drop out at the very first second. I mean, the nice thing about sports is that it does promote teamwork. It does promote collaboration. It does improve accountability.
Mm-hmm. It teaches a lot of different things. It
keeps them on a strict schedule. I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of statistic out there, but like, the more extracurricular activities you do, the less you're going to be exposed to doing, bad things. Mm-hmm. I mean, whatever you want. But, that's, I think, a really important aspect as well.
No, I totally agree. And I definitely, even though, Holden's 4, and I know it probably seems crazy to give a 4-year-old like options or a say per se. Anytime I'm going to sign him up, like so we're about to finish soccer and we're going into T-ball. So the signups were just a couple weeks ago, and I said, Holden, do you want to play T-ball? Yes, Mom. I said, are you 100% sure you want to play T-ball? Because before I sign you up, I need to know that you are going to play. Yes, Mom. Because when T-ball starts, I don't care if you don't want to play in the game. Even if you don't play in the game, we're showing up to every game. I don't care if you support your team by being on the field, or you support your team by being in the dugout, or you support your team by sitting in a chair cheering them on. You're going to support them because you made the commitment. Now with karate, it was a little bit different just because he didn't have a set day. Like, karate's on Monday and Tuesday. It was, we offer classes Monday through Friday. You come on the days you want to come. And because he was in no other activities, we were just bringing him every day just to kind of keep him moving and doing something, until one day he looked at me and said, Mom, I don't want to go to karate. Karate is not my job, and I just can't do it this much anymore. And I was like, okay, let me talk to your dad about that, because it wasn't that he didn't want to be committed to karate or do karate. He just didn't want to do it every day. And that was fine. I didn't feel that it was necessary for him to do it every day, but he needed to understand he wasn't quitting. And I think that goes back to, like you were saying, the commitment. Like, if you're going to sign up for T-ball, okay, you're signing up for T-ball and you're committed until the last day. Now, we don't have to sign up again. I'm not going to force you again if you don't like it, if you're not having fun. But once we sign the papers and we commit to a team, you've now said to a coach, to teammates, to everybody involved, that you want to participate, and you should be there to be a participant in some form or fashion.
Which is funny because we should really watch what we say about Holden on this podcast, which you were at tennis when this happened. But he called me this morning and he was like, Nini, you're a liar. And I said, what do you mean I'm a liar? And he said, you said on the podcast that I was 8 years old and I am not 8 years old. And that was a lie. I said, baby, I know you're not 8 years old. I would never say that you're 8 years old on the podcast. He's like, yes, you did. You're a bad Nini. I can't believe you said I was 8 years old, you liar.
I know. Well, because I was listening to it in the car because I was trying to prove that I said something or another. And I don't know what you're talking about, but in the podcast, I said, when Holden was a newborn, he's like, Mom, all the way from the backseat. I am not a baby. I am not a newborn. I'm like, son, that's not what I said. I said, when you were a newborn at one time, son. You just told the whole world I'm a baby. No, I don't even think this reaches the whole world yet, so calm down. It's okay. We're all going to live through this.
I mean, all right. So going back on the youth sports thing, I think as well, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have lived in 3 different countries with which all 3 had very different structures around what they believed youth sports to be. So I think like the really cool thing about the United States is that here, you have the option to do whatever you want at whatever age. I mean, there are so many options out there. And, even if you're in school, there's always the possibility to be able to go out and still do that sport, no matter the cost. or no matter what sport it is. I mean, Holden, how many sports does Holden do right now as a total?
He's currently, as we speak, in gymnastics, soccer, and karate. When soccer ends, he starts baseball and swimming. And I think that's all he's done. He says he wants to do tennis, but I'm not putting him in tennis yet.
That's fine. But I mean, the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, so he's already at around 4 or 5 sports. Okay, and it could even be potentially more. In Italy, the school curriculum is so difficult that you don't even have the time to do an extracurricular activity because they're already at 100% dedication to study at such a young age, which isn't the right way to do it, but that's just the culture that's over there. In Australia, we are a little bit more fortunate as sports is part of our curriculum. But for example, I even went to a sports high school and they wanted to kick me out of school because I was missing school hours because of tennis. Whereas, you know, from the stories that Maddie has told me with her soccer career, like if you have to miss out on a few hours of school because you have a tournament or you have a match or you have practice, they're willing to work with your schedule to make that happen. You know, which is a very unique thing specifically to this country.
Which a little bit like touching base on Dylan's background. So yes, both of his parents were born in Italy, and then he was born in Australia. He was raised in Australia, but when his parents got a divorce, he went back to Italy for a short, like what? How many years you would say?
I mean, 2 to 3 years.
Okay, so for a short period of time. So he's really been able to experience sports in Australia and Italy, and then now here in America.
Yeah, I played at a developmental level, at a competitive level, and I guess at a partially professional level in 3 countries. So I did get to see a lot of, you know, and of course the peers that were around me all were brought up in different ways. So I really got to experience really unique situations. But like even at the collegiate level, I mean, the reason why America is so, I mean, we're kind of getting off topic a little bit here, but the reason why like even at the collegiate level, so many international students do come to America is because they're able to get a degree while still pursuing their sport at a very high level. I mean, Division I tennis is basically just a little bit under what professional tennis would be. So if I was in Australia, if I was in Italy, there was probably zero chance that I'd still be able to play tennis at this level while also pursuing a master's degree. I mean, that's unheard of in places like Italy. So, you know, those are things definitely to consider when
okay, so I have one question really quick. So you said in Italy they're so devoted to studies that you really can't do a sport. Is like, do they not have like physical education, PE type thing where it's integrated into school?
They do, but just 1 hour a week.
Gotcha.
1 hour a week, which is I'm sure a lot less than what you guys do here in America, and it's definitely a lot less than what we did in Australia.
Oh yeah, I mean typically you do like an hour a day, maybe not in elementary, but like in high school. I mean PE is usually you have to have a PE, so it's 45 minutes to an hour, whatever it is a day that you're there. And I think that was nice.
Even like
growing up,
even from
you got to in PE they made you try all these different sports. And like, I didn't know I liked tennis until I took PE in junior high or high school and we played tennis. And then I was like, oh, I'm not bad. And then I played tennis in high school for a year.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember I always used to be shocked by like the difference in education level between the countries when I used to travel back and forth. Like when I was in Australia and I went to Italy for the first time, studying, like I realized how far behind I was. I mean, you'd be amazed. Like when you go, I mean, I don't know if you guys even know what this means, but I'm just going to speak how we would in Australia. Like in kindergarten, year 1 and year 2, which would be, I don't know what the equivalent is here in America, but like if you were just to be like a fly on the wall, you'd be shocked at like how high of a level these kids are already studying at. Like they're already sitting at desks one by one, looking at books. Whereas like, you know, Australia and America have a lot of similarities in that here they're more about collaboration, building, you know, that Montessori kind of idea where, you know, it's like they're developing different kind of skills building blocks and stuff like that. Those
more
are things.
creativity,
More creativity. Whereas in Italy, they're literally hitting the books by such a young age, and then by the time they're 16, they're masters of study.
So do you think you get a better education in Italy than you do Australia or America?
Well, I wouldn't say a better. I mean, it's all relative to where it is that you want to live. I mean, the education I'm getting here in America is a good education for what it is that I'm trying to do in America. But if I were to go to Italy with this same education, it wouldn't be as advanced. And again, in Italy, people only really go to university to do really specific things. I'm getting a master's degree for sports management, which is a pretty generic overall thing. It's sports business. That's what I'm getting a degree in. In Italy, you don't really need to get a degree unless you're trying to be a doctor or a physicist or astroengineering. These kinds of they're really specific, difficult course studies that they're doing. So that's again just a difference in culture. It's
But do you think that
it doesn't make a lot
Italian adults back some if they haven't if say you had stayed in Italy and you didn't want to become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, so you didn't get a degree in a collegiate degree, and then you come to America, do you think that kind of sets you back because everybody here now has gone to college, but as an Italian adult you haven't?
Absolutely. And I think that's why Italy is having a little bit of a crisis with a lot of young people wanting to leave because they just don't see the opportunity. I like to use the word opportunity a lot, but the opportunity that you see in Italy versus the opportunity that a same aged person could get in another country are worlds apart. Worlds apart. I mean, in Italy, I know people that have already 2 degrees and they're 24 years old and they're still yet to get their first internship because of how competitive it is. It's their education is amazing, but their opportunity is so scarce. So it doesn't really work. And hence the reason why a lot of these Italians are going to Australia to seek new opportunity. They are coming to America to go to college because they do see that it's a lot easier in these countries to be able to build a life for themselves.
So do you think that given the opportunity again, you would come to America to be an international student? Or do you think staying in Australia would have been more beneficial? Or do you think you stand by your decision?
For what it is that I wanted to do, I've always wanted to be a professional tennis player. But, in the back of my mind, I was always like, well, if something ever happens, I do need a degree. And, in my scenario, I could have either stayed in Australia or I could have stayed in Italy. And both of those countries didn't really give me the opportunity to do that. If I would have lived in Australia, I would have had to be going through the same day in, day out routine that I was doing, which wasn't working. Or in Italy, I would have had to give up everything to go and play professional tennis, but give up a degree. So I don't the fact that I was able, I've always been in debt to America for this. The fact that I was able to come here, get a degree, meet such amazing people, explore new avenues, new opportunities, still play. I'm still playing tennis at a very high level. Those are things that I would never trade for anything else. So
then you're going to live in America forever, right?
I mean, if America will take me with open arms.
Well, there's been talk about y'all moving to Australia and Italy, and I'm just saying, America seems pretty great over there, right?
Well, I mean, so for me, I wanted to be able to show Maddie, my girlfriend, I wanted to be able to show her
Maddie, my girlfriend.
Well, I don't know if you introduced me or whatever. I don't know. Who knows?
I
wanted to be able to.
Well, she's just your mate, right? They'll just mate.
Oh, yeah, we're just roommates.
We're just roommates.
Yeah.
They don't know who Maddie is on this podcast, clearly.
I mean, for those who don't know, I lived in Louisiana for 2 years, and that's where I met Maddie. And I got to see a good bit of where she was brought up, the environment, the culture, her family. But on the other side of that, because I came from 2 countries that are pretty far away from here, she'd never really got to see much of where I was from. So for me, it was always like, well, now that, we've been together for X amount for 3 years, going going strong. Like, it'd be great to be able to bring her to my home country and show her the things that I know so that she can see my perspective of life, see where I was raised, where my family's from. And that's why when she came to Italy, she got to learn a little bit more about me, which she didn't know in the past. And especially in Australia, even little things like just seeing where I went to high school, seeing where I practiced every day. I feel like, you're just putting all the puzzle pieces together. And I think that helps. Now, I'm definitely not biased. I would never say, oh, I'm going to live in Australia for the rest of my life. Like, I don't have any emotional attachment to these countries at all. Like I said, I always follow opportunity.
That's a bit
so
of
if the
a
opportunity
harsh statement that you have no emotional connection to these countries.
I don't.
These are the countries that built you. This is the home that made you whole, Dylan, and you have no emotional connection. What are you, dead inside?
Well, I mean, I know it can feel pretty
Dylan's
bland.
Attachment is, I believe, more to people, because he's always been in the position where he's had to travel to people. He's had to travel to Italy to see his grandma. He's had to travel back to Australia to see his dad. He's had to travel here to go to college to see me, so I feel like Dylan's attachment is more to people than it is actual places. And he's always said, like, okay, if Maddie gets a job in LA, like if the influencer life takes me to LA and that's where the opportunity is for us, then that's where he's willing to settle down for us to eventually have a family.
To me, it's just about getting the best possible. We have all of these, I've got this thing tattooed on my wrist that says, like, always give yourself the opportunity to choose where it is that you want to be. I mean, that's pretty much a rough translation, but it's like, now we're in a...
It's in Italian. That's
it's in Italian. But now we're in a position where, like, we can
Italy
choose,
don't have no connection to you, right? Just got Italian on your arm, but oh no.
I mean, it's just, I want to leave all these doors open, and I don't want to lock myself down to anything, because I feel like obviously having the opportunity to access 3 countries versus 1 is a great advantage. If one goes down the drain for whatever reason, you can always hop over to the next one. If Maddie doesn't feel safe in New York City for any reason, that's not a problem. I mean, that's easily fixed. If Italy is in economic crisis that, it's people can't even afford to buy milk there, that's fine. There's always Australia. It just depends on what your priorities are, right? I mean, okay.
And priorities change as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let me ask you right now, where you're at right now in your life, what are your top 3 priorities? What are you looking for in life?
Dylan, this is not an interrogation of me, okay? I don't feel comfortable. No, I'm just joking. I mean, my priorities, of course, like my kids, my husband, I mean, I don't have a career, but I do have a career, I mean, I just want my family to be healthy, happy, and thriving is the best thing I can say, I guess. But I also don't know how to not live here, but I've never not lived here. I lived in Arkansas for a couple years, but I'm saying just like in general, I've never lived outside of America. I've never studied abroad. I've never really left Louisiana for any extensive amount of time. I don't know how to visualize myself anywhere but right here. And I guess that's the beauty of your situation, is you have all these multiple experiences of living in completely different because even though you lived in America in Louisiana, I mean, 2 years in Louisiana is much different than 2 years in New York. I mean, that's practically different countries in and of itself, not including Italy and Australia. Yeah. So you have a vast experience in this department where I really don't.
Well, and that's my, that was my thing. Like, before, again, because we do have the luxury to be able to choose, like, before we do choose, I just want Maddie to be able to see with her own eyes what it is that there is out there. I feel like it'd be incredibly selfish for me to make that decision by myself. Because I do have the knowledge of what other places do have to offer, I can't just be the one to say, well, Maddie, you need to trust me. Trust me. Australia's the best place ever. Just go there blind. Like, before she ever made a decision like that, and I'm not saying that's what the decision is, but like, before we make a decision, I just want her to be able to see with her own eyes what it is that it has to offer for her. Forget me, forget, my family, forget just for her, just her individually. I want her to be able to see if this is something that fits into what it is that her goals are.
Do you realistically think that you or her will ever be able to be 24-hour plane rides away from my children?
I mean, that's more of a question for your sister.
You are a damn liar, Dylan.
Don't,
because you call them just as much as she does. So I don't even want to hear your nonsense.
So the other night, Dylan and I FaceTimed Holden the night before Easter, and Dylan and Holden both got lightsabers from Disney World whenever we went to last year. And they, before we came back to New York, they would like play fight with the lightsabers at home. And so when we FaceTimed him before Easter, Holden was like, oh, Uncle Dill, do you remember when we did this? Do you remember when we did this? And anyway, so yesterday, Dylan goes, you know, it's really, really nice to know that Holden remembers those special moments.
Oh, I know Dylan's attached. He can chuckle and say that's more of a question for Maddie, but we all know it's true, Dylan. Don't lie.
I mean, again,
you're a liar.
in the way that I was brought up, the physical being, oh gee, I sound like a philosophist right now, but like the physical being of being together has never been crucial for me. It's important, but not crucial. It wasn't a matter of life and death. Like, I'm willing to sacrifice 6 months of being together to be able to enjoy an eternity of greatness. If that makes sense. Like, for me, being in the same country, hasn't always been a priority for me, because I wasn't raised like that. You know, I spent a lot of time away from my dad. And yes, I do miss the moments. You know, I'm sure I missed out on a lot. But looking back, I wouldn't change a thing, because that wouldn't make me the person that I am today. So to answer your questions, like, could I be 24 hours away from your children? Yes, if that meant that in the future I could be in a better position to be able to spend more time with them or give them the things that they want to do.
Well, how do you think you'll feel when you have your own children and then either your mom's 24 hours away or my mom's 24 hours away? Like, how do you think you're going to feel when you're like trying to raise kids with a familial bond and no family in sight?
I mean, look, it's not something that I've really thought about too much, because thought about too much.
Wow, that college degree is really showing,
really
Dylan.
Yeah, clearly. How embarrassing. But
no, I mean that conversation will come years and years from now. I mean,
years and years from
thinking
now
about that anytime soon. Yes, Brooklyn, I don't want to have children anytime soon. We're not.
Your
nowhere
eggs
near that.
Dusting up, man. They're shriveling.
Oh,
get it together. It's gonna be dusty in there by the time y'all decide to do anything. Jesus Christ.
The only experience I have of all of this is I know that, like, my mom, like, not that she raised me by herself, but she did do a lot of it by herself. You know, from moving to, when we went to Italy, you know, okay, I was with my grandparents and stuff, but for the most part, it was always just me and her. So I'm not used to having the help of an outside family, because it's always just been me, my mom, and my dad, and in the later years, my stepfather as well. So I think, I don't know. I think it would be okay. Again, it's just opportunity. I wouldn't move to Australia for the sole reason that my mom and dad are there. That's for sure. I mean, if I were to move to Australia, it would be for a lot more reasons than just that. If I were to stay in Australia, it wouldn't just purely be for the reason that there's just a job here. Or if it were in Italy, it just wouldn't be for the reason that, you know, we got nice mountains and lakes. It would have to be a combination of many things, and would have to all kind of collide, which, you know, I'm sure everything, you know, Maddie loves the phrase, everything always happens for a reason. And, you know, I'm just hoping that eventually, I mean, it's kind of, everything's kind of.
Don't talk about my mama.
Everything's kind of all coming together. Everything's becoming a little bit more clear as the days and days go by. I think it's just like right now, we're on the right path. We're making the right choices. We just have to be patient and just, you know, as we say in tennis, grind it out. And it'll all eventually align.
Very X-rated.
I hope.
Say that on our podcast, please.
Grind.
Oh.
No, but everything is slowly starting to fall into place
shape.
for us. Yeah, exactly. You know, so we both graduate in December, and then after that, we both, like, Dylan has to find a job, and, you know, thankfully all my work is pretty much remotely. So yeah, I mean, I guess it really depends on where.
It goes back to priorities. I mean, right now, 2022, so what are we? We're in April. I mean, a priority right now for everyone should be safety. I mean, it's never something that I really had to think about in the past, but like the more and more time goes by, the less and less safe we feel, if that makes any sense. I mean, the world is going crazy.
And Dylan's not someone who is like, oh, I feel unsafe. Like, Dylan thinks everything is rainbows and sunshines, and that the person that could literally hurt you is his best. Like, he just loves life. That's how I like to put it. He just doesn't have a care in the world.
Always lived in a bubble. Always lived in a bubble. So I feel like, you know, the idea of going onto a subway and having to be worried about getting pushed onto the train tracks, I mean, that is inconceivable.
Yeah, he's the kind of person who stands at the end of the ledge and is like looking, waiting for the train to come.
But in your defense, and I don't defend you often, in your defense, you do come from Australia where, I mean, they don't even allow guns. So, like, to you coming here where, like, we can openly carry a gun and have 57 rifles in our closet was, like, mind-blowing to you. And so Australia is just built differently. And I mean, we could go, you and I have spoke at length about that. We've spoken for hours and hours about the government, whatever. We're not going to do that today, but I'm just saying, I understand why you have that sense of oblivion to you, because you were just not raised in a world where danger was as prevalent as it probably is in America.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, you can talk about like the challenges that you had to face when you first came here as an international student, specifically in Louisiana. But one of the things that just so happened with me, I took him into academy, guns everywhere. Like, our academy in Louisiana literally has guns everywhere. And he was just in shutter shock. Like, he had never seen a gun before.
So my very first time coming to the United States was when I was a freshman in college, and that's when I did go to Louisiana. So I arrived. I had, honestly, if you were to ask me the cultural differences between the West, the South, the North, the Cent, like, I would have had no idea. No idea. I wouldn't be able to tell you what any of the cultural differences were. So I went to Louisiana thinking, well, hey, I mean, it can't be too different. America can't be too different to Australia. So I basically generalized the whole country being like the whole country, but, you know, that was a big mistake.
That was your first
But mistake. I went to Louisiana.
Maddie,
yeah, huge mistake. But
we'll get into that later.
But, you know, I got to Louisiana, and just having come from a country like a city like Sydney, where everything was so accessible, you know, to me, Louisiana wasn't that accessible. You know, I couldn't even go do grocery shopping without having to beg for someone to give me a lift.
So Dylan, in Australia, Dylan lived in Sydney, and then in Italy, his father is from Rome and his mom is from Milan, essentially. So all very, very big cities.
So Louisiana was reasonably remote for the kind of lifestyle that I had. So, you know, going to Walmart that very first week to, you know, do basic freshman grocery shopping and some bed sheets was a massive, was a big challenge. It wasn't
culture shock.
Big culture shock. You know, what it was, I didn't even know what Walmart was. Someone said, "Oh, let's go to Walmart." I was like, "Well, does Walmart have a grocery section? Because I don't need to go see, you know,
you don't need
furniture."
Clothes, yeah.
You know, so I had no idea. You know, like in America, everything's bigger and better in Texas, they say. So,
yeah.
you know, this idea for me, it was difficult to understand. But you know, in Louisiana, that was a difficult thing for me to adjust to. Thank God I came with 7 other international tennis players.
All at the same time?
All at the same time. We're all freshmen together. We were a very tight bunch of people. I'm very grateful that we all came in at the same time, because we kind of worked through these difficulties and challenges together until, you know, I eventually met Maddie, and then life completely turned the other way around. Like, everything became a lot easier. And she showed me a side to Louisiana that I'd never seen before, simply because I had no access to these places. Like, I was in Thibodeau. I never got to see Homer because there were no Ubers, there were no buses, there were no trains. So I could never go and see, and I only got to see New Orleans really a handful of times, but I never really got to see the extent of it. So definitely by the time I met Maddie at the end of the 2 years, when I'd already put my transfer request in to go to New York, I'd seen a lot more of Louisiana, which I'm grateful for because it definitely changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Did meeting our family, who are very loud, overbearing, and intrusive, was that a weird experience considering how, like, little family you grew up with? Like you like you said earlier, like it was just kind of you and your mom. Like, was meeting all of us like a lot? Because I feel like it would be a lot.
I mean, a lot. Not really, because families in Italy, like when we all came together in those rare occasions, that's exactly what I had. That's exactly what it was. So when I knew, already coming to your house, already coming to Maddie's, your family's house, I already came in with knowing what to expect. That you were the only thing that I really not struggled with. The only thing that I really still don't really understand is like the open door policy. For me, like that's something that I still don't really understand, because in Italy, we're very possessive. In Australia, it was just my mum and dad. So the idea that we'd leave the door unlocked and just let people walk in, walk out, and not even say hi, but they just came for a plate of some food is very weird to me.
But I will say, I don't think that is an American thing. I think, if anything, that is more of a Cajun culture thing. Like, we as Cajuns, and everybody can have different perspectives on this, but like Cajuns are typically poorer people. They're not, like if you look at our history, like we weren't the most rich society or whatever coming up. And so we always just help your neighbor kind of thing. And so if you need a place to sleep, you know where to find a bed. If you need food, you got food. If you need, I don't know how many times I've met someone in public and they'd be like, "Oh, we're cooking up a whole bunch of food. You and your family should come over." And I don't know these people at all, because around here, it's very like you just help and love your neighbor, and that's just all there is to it. So I could see how that is a bit of a culture shock, because anyone who knows my family, especially my dad, knows that literally the door is always unlocked. You are welcome in our home anytime. Matter of fact, we had that big family get together on Friday. One of his friends drove up, and I looked at my mom. I was like, "Did you invite him?" She's like, "No, did you?" No. He walked up. He's like, "Hey, I know I wasn't invited, but I saw all the cars here. I figured I'd just stop and say hey." We're like, "Okay, hey, come get some food. Like, join the party. Here we are." Like, we don't tell anybody no almost for any reason, unless we really dislike you.
And I feel like in Italy, like that's what I did enjoy. Like, I don't know. I would say that Italy has a lot of, it's very similar to the South. Like, besides the open door policy, like they are very loud. They are very family oriented. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, I was literally in a country where I don't speak Italian. I do understand it. That never, like, I didn't feel like an outcast. Like, even though they were speaking to me in Italian, I always felt so included. I never went like hungry. I mean, just so much food, so much like love in the air of people that I had never met before. Like, literally a random American in this big Italian family. And then, well, not necessarily family, but in this big room full of Italians, a community, exactly. Yeah. And then Martin, which is Dylan's stepfather, he's Australian. So you have an Australian and American in this big room of all these Italians. And you would have thought that, maybe we felt a little excluded, but I never did. Never.
And I love that about Louisiana. The people being so welcoming and so kind. I mean, that was one of the few things that really got me through the first semester of college, because honestly, without that, I don't think I ever would have made it through. Seriously. I mean, a few people, like even the professors, I mean, some relationships that I've formed that I'd never, ever had in my life, I formed in Louisiana. And for that, and not to say that Australia and Italy are very cold places. People are so welcoming. In Australia, we're known for our g'day mate, all these kinds of things. You know, we're supposed to be all hugging and great friends. And in Italy, we're so welcoming.
But in Italy, when you're home, you're home.
Yeah, like, but that's the thing. But even in Australia,
your privacy.
To me, it's just the door. Like, I mean, I'm talking very specific. We're all these cultures that we're from, they're very welcoming. But one thing I know for sure, with at least with my family, is if someone just randomly opened our door and just showed up and said, "Hey, what's up?" I mean, the faces that my parents would have would be appalling. Very scary. Like, I still struggle, like, to be at home with you guys, sitting on the couch, and I just hear the door randomly open, and I'm always asking myself, I wonder who that is, never knowing who's actually walking through the door. That to me, that's a very strange thing. Not bad, just very strange. Because you never really, I feel like there's never really, sometimes you may just want to be left alone. Sometimes you may just want some privacy. Sometimes you don't want to, I mean, I'm 100% sure that there are times that you don't want to see anyone. But because of this policy, this dynamic, you always have to be prepared to see someone, which is fine. But my family would never be able to put on that facade like, "Oh, we're so happy to see you," when in reality, they just don't even want them there.
And I've had a lot of conversations with my parents and my sister, like, and this might come across wrong, but when I'm home with my family, I want to be home with my family. You know, it's not that often that I get to see and spend time with them and just be present with them. And a lot of the times I don't want to say interrupted, because it's not necessarily an interruption, but, you know, I want to talk about personal and private things that are going on in my life as Dylan and I start to make decisions. And sometimes it is a struggle when I'm having these conversations with my family. And in the back of my mind, I know that at any given point, someone could just walk through the front door, and then that conversation will never be visited again, because we have to stop in that moment, because it's no one else's business. You know what I'm trying to say, Brooklyn?
No. I totally agree and understand. I think that my house has always had an open door policy, like whenever I have my own home, but it's with the understanding, like, you're always welcome, but please text. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, please just a 5-minute heads up, like some sort of warning would be nice.
Yeah, but the unannounced is the crazy thing.
Mom and dad are not like that, though.
That. They've never.
You don't.
You know, both, but you also have to realize that both of my grandmothers, but on both sides, you know, they were like that. If someone didn't have a place to sleep, they always made sure that my parents' friends were welcome, that everybody was fed. You know, it's kind of funny. When I went to therapy years ago, I was explaining kind of this whole thing, and my therapist said, "Oh, you were raised with village mentality or pack mentality." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "Because literally none of you do anything without like a whole group setting. Like, none of you are ever alone. You don't just like sit in your own thoughts." And she's right. Like, if something's going on, I call my mom, I call my dad, I call Raymond, I call Maddie, I call you. You know, like, we are just so used to always having a group around us that we just don't know of any other way. So everyone's welcome because they're part of the village, and this is the village. Like, hey, everyone come in. No one, you know, gets thrown away, whatever.
And I think that has a lot to do with the way, like you said, both of our grandparents, but, you know, both mom and dad come from very big families, and they grew up in pretty much poverty, and they had a village that helped raise each of them. And if you ever need my mom or dad for anything, they will never ask why. You will never have to explain why you need something. If you're hungry, if you need, I mean, even money, some people have asked. Like, they really are fantastic people when it comes to that, because they will never judge you no matter what the circumstances.
Yeah, my parents will help, but they will always ask why. Especially with my family, like, I mean, granted, I'm an only child as well, so I'm sure that definitely had a play in it. But, like, I mean, the amount of conversation and the amount of, like, communication that goes on in making one decision is extensive. I mean, it is. It's a very long and thought out process, which it's what I'm used to. You know, I'm definitely not a village. I don't know what the phrase was. A village raised person.
Village mentality. No, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a village mentality because I was alone a lot. You know what I mean? So like I'm used to kind of being in my thoughts a little bit, alone. But it was definitely nice to see the other side.
Yeah, because like my dad literally cannot do anything without inviting a village. Like, hey Janie, that's my mom. Hey Janie, you want to go fishing tomorrow? Yeah. Da 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 da. Hey Chad, you want to go fishing tomorrow? Da 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 da. Hey Chris, you want to go fishing tomorrow? Da 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 da. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, he thinks if he does anything, he has to invite everybody because he doesn't want anyone left out. He doesn't want anyone to not get a phone call. Like, everyone gets, just like Good Friday. It started with, oh, we're going to have crawfish at the house, just us. I talked to mom 2 days later. I was like, okay, well, who else coming? By this point, we had so many people, we had to buy 4 sacks of crawfish. That feeds a lot of people. 4 sacks of crawfish is a lot.
That's crazy.
Like, it literally went from like us 6, my family of 4 and mom and dad to like 40 something people in the blink of an eye.
And I think that's a great thing. But then you can also see the other side of that. You can see the difficulty that, like, when you don't, like with my family, for example, sometimes I don't see them for a year, sometimes 6 months, a year, 2 years. Like my dad, I haven't seen him in 2 years. Like, imagine now I go see my father and he brings all of his work friends over.
Right.
For the first time that I see him in 2 years.
And that's what I was trying to say. That's when I do struggle. Whenever, I haven't seen dad in, I saw him recently from Momo's funeral, but Dylan hasn't seen dad in a full year. There's a lot to catch up on. There's a lot of like personal conversations to have. So when y'all come home,
it's like, can it just be us? Can it just be our family?
Can we just be together?
Don't call the village. I don't need the village. Like, maybe we'll do the village one day, but like the rest of the days, can we just have like quality?
Exactly.
Us time?
Especially when you have like such a short time frame, to be able to do all these things, to be able to talk about stuff, to be able to do certain, sometimes there are even things that need to be done. Mm-hmm. Like, just recently, like my mom really had to, she went to Italy to see us as well, but she really had to go to Italy to sort some stuff out with my grandmother. But none of those things got done, because of village, because of time constraints, because of a lot, and that can be extremely frustrating. Mm-hmm. So like in this case, we'll be in Louisiana in, less than a month's time. Like, we'll have a week there. And then when we come back, I'm sure we'll have
But that's why I don't really like to announce that I'm coming home, because
then everybody wants to obligate you to plans with them. Like, yes. I'm coming home. When can I see you? Let's make plans. And then before you know it, by the end of the day, you're going to have every single minute accounted for, and you have no minutes to just enjoy being home.
Be home
not
with my family.
Not you don't enjoy visiting everyone else, but you want to enjoy just relax and be home and just feel at peace.
And it is really hard because I do have a very big family, and Brooklyn and I were raised to be family people, obviously, with this village mentality. It is very, very difficult, but a lot of the times, and this may come off as really selfish, and to the friends that listen to this and hear this, I am sorry, I do want to see you, but a lot of the times I don't tell my friends that I'm coming home because it's only for 3 or 4 days. And during that 3 or 4 days, my priority is my godchildren. Holden's in school, which means I can see my friends maybe for breakfast. I always try to get breakfast with my friends. But if there's only 3 or 4 days and like Holden's off of school, for example, and I haven't seen him in 6 months, that is my main priority.
But it's also hard to see it like that. Like, as a friend, it's hard to see it like that because it's not the same priorities. And it's hard to be like, I'm sorry, you're not my priority. And that hurts, but they don't understand it because they're not in your situation.
Right. And being in New York, I try to call my friends and I make sure that I stay updated with them in terms of like phone calls and FaceTimes. But I just feel like being in the present moment with my nephews are the most important, because Holden doesn't understand. Well, he understands a little bit now, but like Rowan, Rowan doesn't understand why he doesn't get to see me every single day. He's 2.
Yeah, he literally thinks Nene is the phone.
Yeah, exactly. How sad is that, So whenever I'm home, it's so important for me to just be with them. But I mean, look, there's always a good and a bad side of it. I feel I have loved being with the village mentality. Like during high school, my house was always the house to be at, where all of like our get-togethers, our parties, and all of that. It was always with my parents. I mean, my dad in college, my dad used to like legit party with us outside because everyone loves our parents.
Oh yeah, I've partied with Dad more than most people have partied with their father.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, again, like, thankfully, because our dynamic, I mean, Maddie and I really are, like, in terms of the way that we were both polar opposites, completely opposites. So, I mean, you have seen, like everything, there's always pros and cons in everything. And, it's like, there is no right answer. There is no right way of being. It's just, you just have to see the goodness in everything in the best way that you can,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was extremely grateful that every time I go home, I definitely get to do everything that I need to do with my parents. That not a single beat is missed. But I can see from someone coming from a large family, it can feel very lonesome.
Mm-hmm.
It can feel very. I see when I was in Australia during COVID, difficult time for everyone, 100%. Like there were days that I was at home by myself from morning to nighttime because my parents still needed to work. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. But I can see how for Maddie, that could be a huge problem. So, again, it's just about like everything in life. You need to be able to see, you need to be able to look and see the differences in all cultures and appreciate what the differences are and recognize that there is no right answer, like I just said before.
But I also think that it's important to just surround yourself with people. And this kind of goes back to a few episodes ago where me and Brooklyn talked about like our comfort person stuff. It's important to surround yourself with people who understand the kind of lifestyle that you live. Like, thankfully, the friends that I have in Louisiana, if I don't talk to them for 2 weeks and then I talk to them every day for a week, it's no different to them because they know the kind of lifestyle that I live and the issues that I sometimes run into and how I'm very busy some days and then not busy the others. Like, it's so important to just surround yourself by people who understand you and your lifestyle.
And I second that. The only thing I have against the village mentality, and you know what, if I'm wrong and you don't agree with me, blast me. I don't really care.
Really quickly.
No, like blast me, cancel me, do whatever you want. I really just don't care at this point. But like, the larger your circle is, the more, can I swear?
Yeah.
The more bullshit you have to deal with. And sometimes, like, I'm sorry, but like, people just don't have the time to deal. Like, everyone's already got enough of their own problems. Everyone's already got large ambitions with big desires, and they're already difficult as it is just by yourself. The last thing you need is just random bullshit, And like I'm even like relaying to myself right now. Like even when I was in Australia, like I was like, oh, all these friends, amazing. But like realistically, it just sounded like more issues, more drama, more useless things that just didn't count towards anything.
No, I definitely in therapy during that time learned how to prioritize the village and their needs. Like, okay, I'll listen. Okay, do you need help? Like, am I just listening? Like, do I need to take on this issue? Because I can't take on this issue. You got to take it somewhere else. Like, I'll be quick now when someone comes to me and they're like, I need this. I'm like, sorry, I can't do it. I have my own things going on. Like, you really learn how to, or you should, if you're in a village, you should learn how to make sure you can give appropriately. You can't give 100% to someone else when you're not even able to give 100% to your own family. Like you can only give what you can give, and you turn down what you can't give.
I would be curious to know from the listeners what percentage we have of village people. I'm just going to call it village people versus lone wolf mentality. I don't know what would your therapist say is my bringing up. What would they call that? Lone wolf? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. This is a long time ago.
I mean, you've got the village, and then what else? What's the opposite of that?
Normal.
No, there's no such thing as normal.
Yeah, I don't
know, but I would really be curious to see, like, I wonder if more people are, like, enticed to go with the village, like, because,
but
you know, again,
I think it's
I guess,
your, like, traditional, like, okay, so, like, you were raised with a mother and a father. We were raised with a mother and a father. I'm not saying that, but, like, at 15, my parents had to kind of rely on other people occasionally to help them. And that comes the village. My grandma, my great grandma, my Aunt Sharon, you know, my nanny, you know, people from both sides just stepping in to help when they can. And I'm not even saying, like, my kids are raised with a very present mother, a very present father, and still live in the village, you know. Bailey helps me babysit whenever I need something. My Aunt Sharon helps me, you know, like, it's, but I don't have to call on my village that often, but they're there. You, in your situation, just didn't have a village. You were in a completely different country from all of your family. It was literally your mother and your father. And until they made friends, they didn't have anyone else. I mean, I don't even know if they made friends that they would entrust watching you. You know, I don't know them that well.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's very few friends that I really trust with my kids. I can count them on one hand how many friends I would actually let my kids stay with, you know, for
But
any amount of time.
I feel like a lot of people maybe come with the quote unquote lone wolf mentality, as Dylan calls it. But I remember, like, when we lived in Arkansas and our father was working for a company up there, a lot of those men were brought up in a lone wolf mentality. And because they worked for my father, they never missed a meal. You know, he always asked my mom to cook for them. They always had home cooked meals. If they were working for Christmas, they always spent Christmas with our family. You know, so I don't know, maybe it's just who you...
I mean, I can't even count the amount of people that we consider family and they consider us their family because we stepped in and become their village because they just didn't really have family. And it's kind of the same thing with you, Dylan. I mean, you were sick that one time and mom called me and I said, nope, he's need to go to the ER, and mom went pick you up and took you to the ER and we took care of you. And, you know, I mean, even if you called me tomorrow and said you needed something, I'd get on a plane and I'd go to New York and I'd try to be there the best I can because that's who we are as quote unquote village people. That sounds terrible. But, you know, that's just how we were raised. And that goes back to the open door policy. We're literally, our door's always open. We're always there for anybody, no matter what it is. We're going to step in. And if I can't do it, I'm going to make 57 phone calls to find someone who can, you know?
Yep,
I'm going
that's
to make
right.
it happen because someone needs something. And that's what I know, is that someone needs something and I'm going to help them.
But, you know, again, that concept is really what I struggled with, you know? I mean, Maddie and I always spoke about this a lot, and I always used to tell her, what are you dealing with this for? Like, what's the big deal?
Because I would go home, I would fly home from New York, and some of my friends would, you know, stir up some drama, and I would be completely consumed by it because I loved them so much, and they were supposed to be my best friends, but the drama was just consuming me, and it was something that I shouldn't have even been a part of, and Dylan would just get so frustrated.
Well, I mean, it's all fine if you're strong enough to leave it, like, outside of the house, I guess, if that makes sense.
You can't let it consume
but the moment
you.
The moment that it starts, exactly, the moment it starts to, like, take over everything you do, like, from the moment you wake up into the morning till the time you shut your eyes at night, I mean, that's just when it gets too much. And, like, again, Maddie and I we like to say that we balance ourselves out pretty well. I'm to the extreme of one side. I don't talk to anyone. Like, when I tell you that I don't speak to anyone from back home, it doesn't mean I don't think about them or I don't care about them. If I really do need something, I'm sure there's someone there that I can talk to. But I mean, nothing is to the point that, like, they would make me worry. You know, like, I'd be like, oh my, you know, wow, you know, something's really going on. Like, it's bad. You know, and I'm on one extreme.
Yeah.
Matt is on the other.
I care about my friends significantly.
We were raised to be that way. We were raised to take
exactly.
everyone's problems.
Like, exactly. Even people that have treated me very, very, very poorly, my family has still been accepting of them. And I still do worry about them and what's going on in their lives because they're someone that I really, really cared about.
I think we've found also, like, you know, as time progresses, I think We have found the happy medium.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Found people that are good for.
well, you grow, you learn. I mean,
Yeah.
we're still young. We're all three of us. We're still young. We're still learning. You know, like
wish
we
I
we
was
can only
young.
make. We're still making mistakes. You know,
Mhm.
like we're
Yeah.
still learning along the way, and as long as you learn from them,
Mhm.
you know, as long as you're able to understand and recognize what it is that you did wrong, so it doesn't happen again in the future.
Yeah.
And I think like we're
continue to surround
and
yourself with
I
the
think
right people.
I think like, you know, it's important to understand that you do need a support network around you. Like you can't be like me. You know, if people like looked at me from the outside, they'd be like, wow. I mean, I'm sure the listeners like, wow, this guy's so miserable. Imagine having no friends. No, I mean, I sound like the most miserable person on planet Earth. But it's not really like that. You know, like I do have friendships, and you know, I do want to find that happy medium where, you know, it's not consuming me, but I also do enjoy the company of having other people around me. I mean, you can't be by yourself 24/7.
Well, that's why
It's
you
just,
have
it's
Maddie
not
now.
feasible. Exactly.
But see, I like the adult friendships, like Christina. Again, I talked about her a few episodes ago. Like, she has her own life. She's doing her own thing. And when she needs me, she calls me. When we want to catch up, we speak. I have my own life. I'm doing my own thing. And then we just come together when we need to come, like, quote unquote, adult friends. Like, I just feel like the friends that come with all of the constant drama, I don't want to say they're immature, but it's a very immature friendship
They
for
haven't
me. And it's something I
evolved to
can't.
they haven't evolved to your stage in life. You know, you've evolved
Right.
past like a college sweetheart, and y'all live together. Y'all really have built a life together. Like, y'all are moving in a certain direction. And if they're not to that point, they probably haven't matured past a certain point, which is fine. I mean, 21, 22, a lot of people haven't. I happen to be married at 23. So I was on your path more at your age. But I had plenty of friends who weren't anywhere near that. And that was great.
Yeah.
Because they were living their best. And hey, kudos to you. But it was hard for them to understand where I was in my life because they weren't there. And it was hard for me maybe sometimes to understand, just like kids with friends and without friends with kids and without kids. Friends with kids, they totally understand what I'm going through. Friends who don't have kids, they're like, you can't just get a babysitter and let's go party.
Yeah.
No, like that's not where I'm at.
That's what I'm saying. You know, I'm still getting messages today. I mean, from people that I haven't spoken to in 5 years. I'm still getting messages saying, wow, I tried to call you and I messaged you and you haven't even answered back. You know, like this super, like, don't worry, buddy. When I'm in your city, I will message you. If I want to see you
can't
don't
say,
worry.
hey, what's up?
That
All
sounds
good.
horrible.
I'm alive. Okay, now you're starting to sound like a grumpy prick.
No, but even with me, Dylan is not a big like texter or like on the like he doesn't have Snapchat. He really doesn't use Instagram that much. He doesn't use Facebook. Like Dylan is someone who really enjoys living in the present time. He likes to be around people. He likes to enjoy the experiences.
Well, but let me tell you why. And I wasn't always like that. That's the thing.
Right.
Like, the thing is, I wasn't always like that. There was a time in my past life, you know, like before I went to college, you know, maybe let's just say from like when I was 16 to about 19, 20, I was completely invested in communicating with as much people as possible. And it was exhausting, like to the point that, like, you know, and I think Maddie kind of really helped me make that change as well. Like, because I saw it in her and I was like, you know, we can't keep letting these external entities keep getting in between us. We can't keep letting these people create so many problems. We can't. And honestly, like, I think from a day to another, we literally just flipped the switch and it was game over.
Yeah.
Like, the moment I got rid of Snap, you know, and again, like with where I'm at right now, I am so busy. Like, I don't want to sound like someone I'm too busy for you, but like, I really don't even have the, like, if I've got off time, I'm like laying down, really relaxing. Like, and when I mean like relax, I mean like no phones, no nothing. I really need to relax. Otherwise, I'd be a walking zombie.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, I wasn't always like that. And, you know, I'm sorry. Yes, people are going to message me now. And
I mean,
sorry.
Currently he has, 3-4 full-time jobs. He's a tennis player. He's a full-time student. He has a full-time job and he's a full-time boyfriend. So, that's 4 things that take up every part of his day.
Well, considering that you're a full-time boyfriend, I just want to say that Britney Spears is pregnant and J-Lo got engaged to Ben Affleck for the second time. So Miracles can happen. Dylan, when you gonna put a ring on it, buddy?
93.
Yeah, when we're 93 years old.
That's some bullshit.
I think as technology advances and so does like life expectancy, I think like the median age of marriage is going to be like 93. So I think that's like I think I'm going to peak at that age. So I was thinking that'd be a good time to do it.
Guys, we FaceTimed Holden the other day, and I don't even know how the conversation went, but he was like, Uncle Dill, when are you going to marry my Nini?
Yeah, that's
and then
because his mom's whispering in his ear.
And then I said,
no such thing.
I said, Holden, do you want Uncle Dill to be a godfather to Brooklyn's next child? And he goes, no, I want Uncle Dill to be my godfather. James, if you hear this, which is
James
Holden's actual... I said, no, Holden, we love James. I did stick up for you, James, but Holden does love his Uncle Dill, and eventually we will get married when we're 93.
I remember I passed the ball to Holden, like a little soccer ball, and like he tried to kick it and like fell on his face. And he got so mad at me because he thought like it was me doing it on purpose, like tripping him up on purpose. And that was the last time I was there. I felt like he resented me for it, but I think he's gotten over it now.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
Hopefully the next time I see him, he won't remember that.
He remembers everything. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, going back to the thing, like, to me, Louisiana was mostly that. I mean, everything that we just spoke about. Coming to New York, on the other hand, was basically just going back in time to when I was in Australia. I mean, you know, big city, dealing with a lot of people. No one really gives a shit. Fast-paced.
You're a New Yorker now.
Yeah, but it's been good. It's been real.
All right, guys, this concludes our episode with Mr. Loru for today. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you connect with us on all our social platforms at The Sister Buzz. And if you want to keep up with our Australian, you can follow him on Instagram at Dylan Loru _.
Just don't message me because I will never reply.
G'day, mate.
I'm sorry.
And if you like today's podcast, make sure to leave us a review and also make sure to tune in weekly on Spotify, Apple Purple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Pandora.
Dylan, do you want to say?
Absolutely, yeah. I wanted to say thank you to the sisters, Maddie and Brooke. I appreciate you having me as a guest on your podcast. I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about nowadays, and I really enjoy the stuff that you're doing. So keep it up. If you don't agree with anything that I said today, just call me an idiot. Maddie will let me know that you people have negative feedback.
We're gonna put a poll on our Instagram to decide whether our audience are village people or if you're a lone wolf mentality. So make sure you go on our Instagram stories and vote.
There you go. Have a good one.
Guys, this has been your Sister Buzz. Until next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.